Midnight again. The store was quiet. That kind of quiet that doesn't really feel silent. More like the world is just holding its breath. A faint hum from the freezers, the occasional creak from the ceiling vents. That was all. My name is Ethan. I've been working the night shift at Walmart for the past 11 months. Flagstaff, Arizona. Dry nights, freezing air conditioning, and fluorescent lights that never seem to dim, no matter how many times they flicker. I clock in at 10 p.m. Out by 6:30 a.m., unless inventory runs long or someone calls out, which happens more than you'd think. I stock shelves mostly, pack out shipments that roll in just before midnight, check the price tags, realign product, wipe down the coolers. Sometimes I help clean up spill zones or catch a stray coyote wandering in from the desert outskirts. It's not glamorous, but it's steady. Most nights are uneventful. You start to find comfort in the patterns. The distant beep of the scanners, the soft static from the intercom when no one's speaking, the way the carts rattle slightly when the air conditioning kicks in too hard. But when that rhythm breaks, even just a little, you feel it, like a draft in a sealed room. The first time it happened, I thought I imagined it. I was wheeling out a new pallet of dairy, yogurts, milk cartons, some fancy vegan creamers no one buys. I passed the front clock-in station. We have two, one up front by the entrance and one in the break room. The monitor beeped. Not loud, just that soft chime it gives when a badge is scanned. That little digital chirp, like a microwave finishing. I paused. No one was there. I mean that literally. The vestibule was empty. No carts moving, no footsteps. Just rows of locked glass and the faint glare of parking lot lights bleeding through the windows. The sound had definitely come from the front terminal. I walked over, pushing the cart aside, and stared at the screen. A name was still faintly displayed, mid-fade. Marcus Granger. Clock in. 2:07 a.m. Then the screen went back to its idle state, the standard Walmart welcome message in pale blue letters. I blinked, stood there for a moment, looked around again. Still no one. I thought maybe it was a glitch. Maybe someone had walked in and back out real fast, or one of the other night guys was playing around. But when I checked the cameras the next day, just out of curiosity, there was nothing. No footage of anyone entering at 2:07 a.m. Just the timestamp, the audio, that soft beep. Marcus Granger had been dead for 3 weeks. Hit by a car, off shift, out near his apartment. It was a drunk driver, they said. Hit him hard enough to throw his body against the guardrail. He used to stock hardware and seasonal. Worked the same shift as me, different aisles. Always wore this ugly red Arizona Cardinals hat. We weren't close, just nods, some tired jokes during breaks. But he wasn't the kind of guy you'd forget. I remember watching them clean out his locker, his name tag, his shoes. Someone made a joke that the locker still smelled like nicotine and plastic. No one laughed. The night after that, we all stayed pretty quiet. So when I saw his name flash across that clock-in screen, I froze. I didn't tell anyone at first. What could I say? That the system registered a dead man clocking in. It sounded like a bug, or a bad joke, but something about the time stuck with me. 2:07 a.m., and the way the beep had echoed, just slightly louder than usual, like the store itself had heard it. I shrugged it off that night, told myself it was a fluke. I went back to stocking, keeping my headphones in, zoning out to an old podcast. But that same beep happened again, the next night, and the next. Always at 2:07, always followed by that same name, Marcus Granger. Everything else in the store was normal. The shipments arrived on time. The intercom stayed silent. No one else mentioned it. But every night I'd catch that sound, that chime, and then I'd check, just to be sure. His name, always there. Everything was in place, which made what happened next even harder to explain. I wasn't supposed to stay on nights this long. It started as a temporary shift, just until they found someone else. But weeks turned into months, and here I am, nearly a year later, still walking through those automatic doors just as the sun disappears behind the hills. My name is Ethan Lewis, 29. I've lived in Flagstaff my whole life. Never left the state, never really saw the need to. Walmart's just off Route 66, tucked between a shuttered Wendy's and a 24-hour laundromat that smells like bleach and burnt dryer sheets. Our store isn't huge, but it's one of the few that runs a full overnight crew. We get a lot of late-night traffic. Truckers, insomniacs, college kids looking for snacks. And sometimes, people you hope never see your face again. The building itself is old. Not ancient, but outdated in that early 2000s way. Beige tiles with thin cracks. Ceiling panels slightly warped from years of moisture and lazy maintenance. A weird echo in the electronics section that never quite goes away. There are 8 of us on the night shift, including me. Frank does the freezer and meats. Heather handles beauty and pharmacy. Caleb's new, still figuring out the layout. Then there's Diego, our floor manager. He mostly stays in the office watching cameras or pretending to send emails. The others rotate in and out. They don't last long. I usually take aisles 10 through 15. Cleaning supplies, canned goods, some random spillover from toys or pet food depending on the season. I know every shelf by heart. I can tell when something's been moved, even slightly. That's just what happens when you spend hundreds of hours alone with rows of product and stale air. We each have our routine. Mine's simple. Clock in, locker room, check the manifests, load a pallet, unload it, rinse and repeat until the sun comes up. Break room at 2:30. Coffee, silence, the buzz of vending machines no one ever restocks. Then back to it. That's what I like about this shift. The stillness, the predictability, until lately anyway. It's been 3 weeks since the first beep. I've heard it 11 times now, always at the exact same time, always followed by the name, Marcus Granger. I started documenting it, just notes in my phone, times, dates, which terminal it happened on. At first, it was just the front clock in. Then, a few nights ago, I heard the sound coming from the break room terminal. Same beep, same name. But I was alone in there. I stood frozen, holding my paper cup of coffee. The screen lit up, blue glow against the wall. There it was. Clock in. Marcus Granger, 2:07 a.m. Then it faded. I asked Diego if the system could glitch like that, if maybe someone forgot to deactivate Marcus's profile in the employee database. He shrugged. "I'll check with corporate," he said. But I knew he wouldn't. I tried to drop it. I really did. But something about that name showing up over and over began to wear me down. Not because I believed in ghosts or anything. I didn't. I don't. It's just that Marcus was one of us. And seeing his name like that every night, it felt like something unfinished, something out of place. You get used to small disturbances on this job. Things shift, shelves settle, lights flicker. But this wasn't random. This was consistent, timed, purposeful. 2 nights ago, I stayed near the break room terminal after 2 a.m. pretending to clean, just to watch the screen. It happened again. Same sound, same timestamp. But this time, I swear to God, I felt something pass behind me. No footsteps, no breeze, just presence. Like someone stood behind me for a second. Not close, just within awareness. Like when you know someone's looking at you through a window. I turned. No one. The hallway behind the break room leads to dry storage. Stacks of unboxed product, cleaning gear, mop buckets. It was still, nothing out of place. But when I walked toward the end, just to be sure, I found something. A single glove, one of the ones we use for handling freight, latex and disposable. But it wasn't new. It looked used, dirty, crumpled in the middle of the floor like it had been dropped. That's when I started to wonder. Who else has access to Marcus's badge? His ID was deactivated after his death. That much I know. I saw the HR email myself. But the clock-in system isn't just digital. There's a physical badge scan. A real RFID read. It's not just a login, it requires the actual card. And if someone found that badge, they could trigger the system. That's what I told myself anyway. It had to be a prank, or a sick memorial. Maybe Diego was messing with us. Or someone found Marcus's old locker and decided to stir things up. But the truth is, I don't think anyone's doing this. And last night, something new happened. The front doors opened at 2:06 a.m. Not all the way. Just a slight hiss and separation. Like they tried to slide but stopped. That's not normal. Those doors are motion triggered. They only move if someone's physically there. The security footage? Blank. Static for exactly 10 seconds during that window. Diego says the timestamp corrupted. That sometimes happens with the feed. I'm not so sure. There's something wrong here, something that doesn't add up, and I don't think it's going to stop. I went to Diego again the next night. This time I didn't bother with small talk. I just asked straight up, "Can you pull the system logs from the time clock?" He looked at me like I was asking to borrow his car. "Why?" he said, already annoyed. I told him I was hearing things, that the beep kept happening, that Marcus's name was showing up at the terminals. I didn't mention the glove or the doors yet. I figured I'd let him catch up on his own. To my surprise, he didn't blow me off. He actually walked me into the office. Small room. Smells like printer toner and stale fast food. 2 monitors on the desk, 1 security feed, the other for admin logins. Diego clicked around, chewing on a pen cap, not saying much. His face lit only by the blue glow of the screen. "All right," he muttered. "Let's see." He pulled up the attendance reports. Standard spreadsheet format. Rows of names, timestamps, ID numbers. Then he sorted by clock-in time. There it was. Granger Marcus, ID 1547834. Clock-in 2:07 a.m. Date, last night, and the night before, and the one before that. 7 straight entries, all logged after his death. Diego squinted, clicked on the entries. "See?" he said. "It's not just a screen glitch, it's logged in the database." I leaned in. "So, how's that possible?" He shook his head. "No idea. Unless someone's using his badge." "You said the badge was turned off." "It was. HR deactivates IDs once we report a death. I was the one who sent the report." "Then what the hell is this?" Diego didn't answer. Instead, he opened a different tab. One linked to the store's internal security protocols. A deeper backend. This is the stuff only managers can access. Terminal log activity, badge read reports, door access logs. He searched Marcus's ID number again. The logs showed physical badge swipes, as in someone had physically scanned Marcus's badge on 2 different terminals, the one in the front vestibule and the one in the break room, exact same time, 2:07 a.m. "You're seeing this, right?" I asked. "Yeah," he said quietly. 2 terminals at once. That's not just a prank. He didn't say anything. I watched his expression shift, from annoyance to confusion to something closer to fear. Not overt, but in his eyes. He leaned back in the chair, crossed his arms, and stared at the screen like it might blink back at him. "I'll open a ticket with IT," he said after a long pause. "They'll check the network." I didn't believe him, and maybe he didn't believe himself either. I left the office and went back to the floor, but I didn't resume stalking right away. Instead, I walked to the break room. Empty, as usual. Coffee machine humming, chairs pushed in, everything still. Then I moved to the front vestibule, where the other terminal was. Again, nothing out of place. No scuffs on the floor, no signs of tampering. The only thing that stood out was the silence. Thick. Not peaceful, just heavy. I stared at the scanner. Little glass plate with a soft green light pulsing every few seconds. Waiting. That's all it ever does. Waits. I reached out and touched the screen just to see if it was warm. It was cold. Not just room temperature. Actually cold. I pulled my hand back. I stood there for another few minutes watching the front doors. Nothing moved. Then I turned to leave and something caught my eye. The smudge. On the glass of the entrance doors, not near the handle. Higher up, like a palm print. But not flat. Smudged. Like it had dragged sideways. A faint oily streak that caught the light at a certain angle. I stepped closer. The print was odd. Too long. The spacing off. Almost like the fingers were tilted unnaturally. I looked around for cleaning supplies, but ended up just staring at it for a while. It was barely visible unless you looked from the right angle. Almost like whoever left it didn't want it seen. Or maybe it wasn't left for us. Back in the employee area, I passed by the lockers. I stopped in front of Marcus's. Number 32, the same one they cleaned out weeks ago. It was closed. I checked the lock. Standard combo dial, no scratches, no sign of forced entry. Then I bent down and looked underneath, just in case. There was dust, nothing else. But as I stood up, I noticed something small on the floor beside the adjacent locker. A folded piece of paper. I picked it up, unfolded it. It was a printout. from the clock-in system, dated 3 days ago. It showed Marcus's name, the timestamp, the terminal location, but there was something else scrawled across it, in red ink. 2 words, "He's here." No initials, no context, just those 2 words, underlined twice. I put the paper in my pocket and didn't say anything to anyone. That night, I didn't stay for break. I finished my shift and clocked out early, but I couldn't sleep because I kept thinking about something Diego said, or rather, didn't say. He didn't seem surprised. Confused, yes, but not surprised, as if a part of him already knew something was wrong. And if he did, if any of the others knew, then why the hell hasn't anyone done anything about it? I didn't like Marcus when I first met him. There was something about the way he watched people. Not in a creepy way, just quiet, calculated. He didn't talk much, always had earbuds in. Always wore that same red Cardinals cap, even though we're in northern Arizona and no one here actually watches football. It was like a uniform for him. Hat, hoodie, dull stare. He worked freight like me. Mostly the seasonal aisle, garden stuff, school supplies, Halloween crap depending on the month. He'd been at the store longer than me, maybe 3 years. No one really kept track, but everyone knew him. He didn't cause problems, never called out, never fought with anyone. Just showed up, did his work, left. That's what made his death hit harder. It happened on a Sunday, that I remember. He had clocked out like normal, 6:34 a.m., walked across the lot toward his car. We don't have security that early, so no one saw it firsthand. But a customer found him 20 minutes later, slumped against the guardrail near the outer edge of the lot. Blood on the pavement, bones broken, head injury. Police said it was a hit and run. Probably a drunk driver cutting through the back lane to avoid the lights. No camera footage, no witnesses, just Marcus. And his badge, still clipped to his belt when they found him. I was off that night. When I came in the next day, the store was weirdly silent. No one said it directly, but the tension hung there, in the air, in the way people avoided aisle 12. The break room had a sympathy card on the table, a few signatures, nothing elaborate. They cleared out his locker that same night. I watched Diego do it. He didn't touch anything with his bare hands. Used gloves. Tossed most of it in a black plastic bag. The only thing he paused on was the Cardinals hat. He stared at it, then folded it, gently, and placed it in the bag last. After that, no one really mentioned Marcus again. We moved on. We had to. But I didn't forget how he used to stand at the end of his aisle when he was done stocking. Not leaning or sitting, just standing, like he was waiting for something. Sometimes he'd just stare down the corridor, hands in his pockets, like there was something farther off, just past the vision of the cameras. I asked him once what he was looking at. He just shrugged and said, "Sometimes I think there's someone still back there." I thought it was a joke, an offhand comment. Now I'm not so sure. After I found the printout with "He's here" written on it, I started digging. I went through the old HR reports. Some are still in the filing cabinet in the back office. Physical copies, unsigned, half-complete forms no one bothered to archive properly. I found Marcus's termination file, dated 3 weeks ago, signed by Diego. But here's the thing, it wasn't complete. The badge deactivation field was blank. The reason for separation line just had one word, pending. There was no next of kin contact, no funeral date, nothing about corporate reaching out to his family. Like the paperwork was started and then abandoned. I brought this to Heather, who's been working longer than any of us. She does the pharmacy aisle but knows most of what happens behind the scenes. I didn't tell her everything, just hinted. "Did you know Marcus well?" I asked. She didn't look up from her clipboard. No one really did. I waited. Then she added, "He was quiet, but he knew things." "What kind of things?" She finally looked at me. "Inventory, layout, people. He noticed things no one else did. Like, if a box was moved, or if something wasn't where it should be, he'd catch it before the scanners did." I nodded. Then she said something else, something that chilled me. After he died, I kept hearing movement in aisle 13. She said it low, almost like she regretted saying it the moment it left her mouth. "Aisle 13?" I asked. She nodded. That was his last zone, the week he died. I thanked her and walked away, heart pounding. I hadn't realized that. Marcus had been moved to aisle 13 just days before he was killed. That's the same aisle where the doors opened, the same one where I felt the cold spot by the break room, the same aisle where, 2 nights ago, I found something else. I hadn't told anyone about it yet. It was near the end cap, where we keep leftover clearance items. Mixed shelf, socks, shampoo, a few cans of air freshener. I was doing a final face-up pass when I saw it. Something tucked behind the lower shelf, half hidden. I crouched down. It was a shoe, not a customer's, not a kid's. It was one of ours, work issued, black, slip-resistant. I picked it up. It was stiff, dry, dusty, but not dirty. Inside, written in faded black marker, was a name, M. Granger. I held it for a while, then put it back where I found it. I don't know why. Something about the way it had been placed, not dropped, not lost, placed, made me hesitate, as if someone had set it there for me to find. I didn't tell Diego, or Heather, or anyone, because deep down I think I already know what's happening, or at least, I know what it feels like. Like Marcus never left the store, not really. Like something in aisle 13 still belongs to him. I asked Diego for the footage. I waited until a night when we were short-staffed, just me, him, and Caleb on duty. Less noise, less movement. He was in the back office, eating from a crumpled bag of chips and watching the loading dock cam when I knocked. "You got a minute?" I asked. He sighed, wiped his hands on his pants. "What now?" "I want to see the 2:07 a.m. footage from last night, both terminals." He gave me a long look. "You still on that?" I didn't answer, just waited. Eventually he relented, pulled up the camera feeds. We started with the front entrance, 4 angles. One showing the doors, one the parking lot, one overhead pointing at the vestibule, and the last one angled down at the clock-in station. He scrolled to 2:06 a.m. Nothing. Then the timestamp blinked, 2:07 a.m., and the feed stuttered. Just for a second. Then it resumed. The doors hadn't moved. The clock-in station didn't light up. No sign of anyone approaching. No beep. No movement. Just stillness. He rewound, played it again. Same thing. "It should have triggered," I said. "You saw the log." His name showed up again. "I know," Diego muttered. "Let's try the break room." He pulled up that feed. 1 camera. Grainy black and white view of the small room. Coffee machine in the corner. 2 tables. Microwave on the wall. Time, 2:06:58. Empty. 2:07s. Nothing. But this time, something changed. The microwave light flicked on. It was subtle. Just a brief flicker. Then the screen on the break room terminal flashed. Diego paused the feed. "You see that?" I asked. "Yeah." He rewound. Zoomed in. At 2:07:03, the clock-in terminal lights up. You can't see the screen from this angle, but you can see the glow. You can also hear the beep. Faint, but there. Just one. The camera catches it. But again, no one enters. No one swipes a badge. Nothing. I felt my stomach tighten. Diego sat still for a moment, then leaned back, rubbing his temples. "This doesn't make sense," he said. He wasn't wrong. I watched the screen again. Replayed the sequence. Frame by frame. The microwave light. The terminal glow. The beep. Then, static. Just for a second. Like an old VHS hiccup. Then everything normal again. I asked him to check the logs for door access. Sometimes internal doors, especially near the stockroom, require a staff override after hours. If Marcus had somehow entered through the back, but the logs showed nothing. No entries, no swipes, no anomalies. I asked Diego one more thing before I left the office. "Where's Marcus's badge?" He didn't answer right away. "I don't know," he said finally. "HR was supposed to collect it. You saw it on the body, right?" He nodded. "They gave it to the district manager." "Who?" "Riley. But she got transferred 2 weeks ago. Bakersfield now." "Did she log it anywhere?" "No idea." I left without saying anything else. That night, I didn't go back to my aisles right away. I went to aisle 13. It was around 2:15 a.m. I timed it that way on purpose. The aisle was silent, motionless. Pallets lined the edges, boxes of discounted 4th of July decor still lingering out of season. I walked slowly, eyes scanning every shelf. Nothing moved, until I reached the middle section, the place where seasonal bleeds into pet supplies. There was a candle display there, one of those rotating racks full of scented glass jars. I glanced at it as I passed. Just habit. Then I stopped, turned back. One candle was lit. I stared at it, my mind trying to make sense of it. It was the only one burning. A small white flame flickering inside a glass labeled Vanilla Breeze. I hadn't lit it. No one had. We don't even have lighters on that aisle. I stepped closer. The wax was half melted, not fresh. The flame flickered harder as I approached, then shrank, as if reacting to me. I leaned down and blew it out. The smoke curled upward slowly, in a spiral. The air felt thicker suddenly, like the temperature had dropped a few degrees. I didn't touch anything else. I didn't speak. I just backed away. Later that night, I checked the break room again. Everything was back to normal. The microwave was off, the screen on the terminal idle, but taped to the side of the vending machine, crooked, barely hanging on, was a small post-it note. It was yellow, curling at the edges, probably there for hours before I noticed. On it, written in black ink, were the words, "You're watching the wrong place." No signature, no context. Just that. I didn't take it down. I just stared at it. Because suddenly, the footage not showing anything didn't feel like a glitch. It felt deliberate. Like we were only being shown what we were supposed to see. There are patterns in every place. In Walmart, they're especially clear, because nothing ever changes. Every product has its place. Every pallet follows a route. Every shift runs like clockwork until it doesn't. That's what made the recent changes so noticeable. They weren't dramatic. Not at first. Just small shifts. The first one was the milk. I stock dry goods, canned food, boxed items, sometimes household cleaners. I don't touch dairy. That's Frank's section. He's been working it for years. He knows how it's supposed to look. But 2 nights ago, he found a gallon of milk sitting in the middle of aisle 13. Upright, unopened, cold. That shouldn't happen. No customer had been inside the store in hours. And the milk cooler is on the opposite side of the building. You don't just carry a gallon of milk to aisle 13 and leave it there by accident. Frank brought it up to Diego. Diego shrugged it off. Probably a vendor. But it wasn't. Our vendors scan everything. They don't place product, and definitely not in the middle of the floor. The next night, something else changed. The cart alignment was off. Every night, I stacked the same row of empty carts beside the janitor's closet. It's a habit. 12 carts in a line, all facing inward. It's the kind of small order you create for yourself when working graveyard shifts in fluorescent silence. That night, one cart was turned outward, still aligned, but facing the wrong direction. I asked Caleb if he had moved it. He hadn't. I moved it back. The next night, it happened again. Different cart, same misalignment. It was so subtle it felt like a joke, but no one was laughing. Even the lights started acting different. There's one overhead bulb in aisle 13, near the midway point, that always flickered. Everyone knew it. It was like background noise, predictable. But now it flickers in a new rhythm. 3 quick pulses, then a pause, then nothing for 10 minutes. Then again, 3 quick pulses. Heather noticed too. She asked Diego to replace it. He said the maintenance order was already in, but the bulb never gets changed. It just keeps pulsing. Last night, during our 2:30 break, I went into the break room. Heather was already there, sipping coffee. She looked tired, eyes a little too wide, hands tense. She glanced up at me and said, "You seen the toothpaste?" I blinked. "What?" "In the cereal aisle." I stared at her. There was a box of toothpaste, just sitting on the floor, right in front of the cornflakes. Maybe someone dropped it. She shook her head. Box was clean, not dented, not out of stock. Full unit. I didn't know what to say. She sipped her coffee again and muttered, "Things keep ending up where they're not supposed to be." I nodded slowly. "I've noticed." Then she said something else. "They're being placed." Her voice was quiet, barely a whisper. I didn't press her. She didn't say more. After break, I went to aisle 13. It was just after 3 a.m. The air felt heavier there. Not cold, just still. as if the circulation didn't reach that aisle properly. I walked slowly, scanning shelves, looking for anything out of place, and I found it. A single roll of receipt paper, Walmart branded, still in the wrapper, sitting neatly in the center of the floor. This was not the kind of thing customers drop. It's not even something they handle. We keep receipt paper in the locked back office. Only managers have access. I picked it up. It had dust on the bottom, which meant it had been sitting for longer than a few minutes. I turned it over. Someone had written something on the side in black marker. Just one word: back. That's all. I stared at it for a long time before I put it in my hoodie pocket and walked out. As I passed the cleaning supply aisle, I heard something shift. Just a soft scrape, like cardboard sliding against tile. I turned quickly. Nothing. But one of the shelves looked different. A box of bleach had been pulled slightly forward. Just one box. No others touched. I reached out and nudged it back. Underneath it, flat against the shelf, was a folded index card. I pulled it out. No handwriting this time. Just a printout. Inkjet, poorly aligned. A timestamp, 2:07 a.m. Aisle 13. Employee, 1547834. Granger, Marcus. Same data from the system log. Except this copy was different, because this one had a new column. Duration, 000612. I'd never seen that before. We don't log time spent at specific terminals, only swipe-ins and outs, no durations. But this printout said Marcus had been active, or present, for 6 minutes and 12 seconds. Doing what? I don't know. I showed it to no one. I went back to my aisles and finished stocking, but the air felt different now. Heavier, like the routine itself was being bent. Not broken, just shifted, slightly, repeatedly. Someone, or something, was changing the rhythm of the store. Just enough for us to notice. Just enough to make us doubt it. And every night, I feel like that pattern's getting closer to me. It happened during lunch, or what passes for lunch when your shift starts at 10 at night and ends just after sunrise. We usually break around 2:30 a.m. Most of us drift into the break room in silence, microwaving leftovers, sipping vending machine coffee, avoiding eye contact. That night, it was just me and Caleb. He was slouched in the far corner, headphones in, eyes half shut. I nodded to him, got no response. I walked to the coffee machine, a bulky old bun model that spits out liquid that barely qualifies as drinkable. I hit the brew button, watched it stutter to life, and leaned against the counter. Then the microwave turned on, all by itself. No one had touched it. No one was standing near it. The light inside flicked on. The turntable began to spin. The timer read 30, half a minute, but the start button had never been pressed. I stared at it. It made a soft whirring noise, the kind it makes when heating something dense, like soup or leftover pasta. But the tray inside was empty. I turned to Caleb. He hadn't moved, still staring at his phone, lost in whatever he was listening to. "Did you see that?" I asked. He pulled out one earbud. "What?" "The microwave." He looked up. "What about it?" I gestured. The machine stopped. The beep sounded once. Done. It went completely silent. Caleb looked at it, then back at me. "Was someone using it?" I shook my head. "It started by itself." He raised an eyebrow. "Maybe someone set it and walked out." I didn't answer, because just then, the coffee machine beeped. The pot was full. Steam rose lazily from the surface, except I hadn't added a filter. I stepped closer, opened the lid. The filter basket was full, neat, fresh grounds, wet. But I hadn't done it, and no one else had entered the room. I turned slowly. Everything in the break room was still, motionless. Caleb had gone back to his phone. I walked to the vending machine. The post-it note was gone. The one that had said, "You're watching the wrong place." In its place was a new one. Same yellow paper, same handwriting. This one said, "Check locker 32. I didn't react. I just stared at it. Then I turned and left the room. I walked slowly down the hall to the locker area. Rows of metal doors, painted dull gray, buzzing faintly under the flickering overhead bulb. Locker 32, Marcus's. It was closed. The combination lock was still on it, but something was different. The dial was set to 0, not mid-turn, not stopped partway, dead center, like someone had reset it. I reached out. The lock popped open in my hand. I froze. That lock hadn't been opened in weeks. I knew that. We all did. I pulled it free and swung the locker open. At first, it was empty. Just metal shelves. A faint scent of old detergent and something sharper, harder to place. Then I saw it. A notebook. Small, spiral bound, black cover. I reached in and pulled it out. It felt cold. I flipped it open. First page was blank. Second page, just a list of numbers. Timestamps. 2:07 a.m., 2:07 a.m., 2:07 a.m. Over and over again. Dozens of entries. Some underlined, some circled. The next page had words, scattered phrases, like thoughts written in a rush. It's always cold near the back door never locks properly. I saw myself on camera. I kept turning pages. Some were torn, others smeared with what looked like old water damage. Then one page stopped me. It had a diagram, crude, hand-drawn, a layout of the store, but altered. Aisle 13 was circled, repeatedly, dark, heavy pen lines digging into the paper. Next to it, 2 words were written in block letters, Echo Zone. I stared at that term. I'd never heard it before, not in retail, not in security, not anywhere. Below it, a single line was underlined twice. They don't leave when we think they do. My chest tightened. I closed the notebook, put it in my pocket, and shut the locker. As I turned to leave, I heard something fall. A small clatter. I looked down. A quarter. It had rolled out from under the row of lockers. I crouched, reached for it. As my fingers touched the edge, I froze. There was something else under there. A folded piece of paper. I pulled it out slowly. Another printout. Clock-in log. Marcus's name. 2:07 a.m. Again. But the terminal listed was different. It said, Z location, not registered. That field shouldn't exist. Our terminals are labeled by ID. Front, break room, back office, nowhere else. I stared at the term, Z location. It meant nothing, or maybe it meant too much. I stood up, heart pounding, walked quickly back toward the break room. It was empty now, lights dimmer than before, microwave screen blank, but a faint smell lingered. Burnt plastic, like something had overheated. I checked the machine. It was off. Then I looked down at the table. Someone had written something on the tabletop in condensation. Just 3 words, as if a finger had traced them into the moisture left by a cup. He's not gone. There's a drawer in the maintenance closet we don't open often. It's under the sink, behind the cleaning chemicals, half blocked by a mop bucket that's been cracked since 2018. That drawer is where we toss the things no one claims. Keys, receipts, lighters, broken watches, bent glasses, name tags. We call it lost and found, but it's more like a junk graveyard. I hadn't thought about that drawer in months. Not until I saw the phrase again. He's not gone. It stayed with me, written in the moisture on the break room table, as if someone had just been there, just long enough for the condensation to hold the message, then vanish. That night I kept thinking about Marcus's badge, how it was never properly deactivated, how no one could confirm where it ended up. It felt too deliberate, like someone had tucked it away, not to protect it, but to hide it in plain sight. So after finishing up my aisles, or pretending to, I walked to the maintenance closet. I didn't bring it up to Diego, didn't mention it to Heather or Caleb. I just waited until 4 a.m., when everyone drifts into that strange, weightless lull. That dead hour where the store feels more like a shell than a workplace. I pulled the mop bucket aside and knelt down. The drawer creaked as I opened it. Dust, layers of it. A few receipts fused to the bottom like dried leaves. I started digging. Half a broken flashlight, a staff lanyard with no badge, a bent price tag gun, then, deeper in the back, a plastic bag, zip-locked, yellowed. Inside, a red Cardinals hat, folded neatly. Underneath it, a name tag. Marcus G., seasonal associate. I held it for a moment. It felt unreal. Then I saw something else. The badge. His actual employee ID card. The one we all clip to our vests. White plastic, black stripe, blue Walmart logo on the corner. Marcus's face, blurry, like the photo had faded slightly. And it was warm. I blinked. Not hot, not like it had been sitting near a heater, but warm in a way it shouldn't be, like it had just been held. I pulled the card out of the bag. A small slip of paper fluttered to the floor. I picked it up. Someone had written on it in small, tight cursive, "It still scans." No name, no date. I stuffed the badge into my hoodie pocket and stood up, heart racing. The closet door creaked behind me. I turned fast. No one there, but the hall beyond looked darker than usual, as if one of the overhead lights had burned out. I stepped out, closed the closet behind me, and started walking. My plan was to take the badge straight to the break room terminal. I needed to see it for myself, to know. But as I passed aisle 13, I stopped. It was silent. Not just quiet, silent. You don't realize how much noise a store makes until it stops. Refrigerators, vents, soft buzz from overhead lights. It all vanishes into this ringing stillness. That's what aisle 13 felt like in that moment. Like someone had pressed mute on the world. I stepped in, just a few paces. My shoes didn't echo. Even the floor felt different, like the tile was softer or further away. Then, a sound, soft, plastic crinkling. I turned toward the end cap. A bag of Halloween candy lay split open. Miniature chocolates spilled out like teeth. And standing upright, perfectly balanced in the middle of the mess, was another item. A doll. Not one we carry, not anymore. It was one of those older Walmart exclusives, from years ago. Cloth body, oversized head, sewn smile, faded red overalls. It shouldn't have been there. We don't stock those, not since 2016. I crouched slowly. The tag was torn. No SKU, no price. But someone had written something across the doll's face, in black marker, slanted across the cheek. "Stay here." I didn't touch it. I backed out of the aisle, turned toward the break room, and walked faster than I should have. Inside, the terminal glowed dimly, screen idle. I pulled the badge from my pocket, held it for a second, then scanned it. Beep. The system responded. "Clock in, Marcus Granger, 2:07 a.m. The screen didn't hesitate. No error, no rejection, just a smooth, seamless login. Then something new happened. The system froze for about 5 seconds, and then shifted screens. Not the standard time clock layout. This was different. White background, one line of text. "Welcome back." That's all. Then the screen went black, completely off. No glow, no cursor, nothing. I touched the monitor. It was cold again. The kind of cold that lingers, like metal left outside. I stood there for a long time, not thinking, not moving, just letting the quiet fill in the blanks. Because this wasn't just about Marcus anymore. This wasn't a glitch, or a prank, or some lingering grief echoing through the store. It was contact, and now I had proof. The badge wasn't lost, it was waiting. And now that I'd used it, I wasn't sure if it was mine to return. I started hearing them the next night. Not words, not at first, just patterns. Sounds that didn't belong in a store. Not mechanical, not electrical, organic, but wrong. It started around 2 a.m. I was restocking batteries in aisle 8 when I felt it again. That pressure shift, like the air had thickened. Then the sound came, soft, indistinct, like someone speaking through fabric, not whispering, but muffled, like a voice behind drywall, close enough to register, far enough to lose shape. I froze. It was coming from aisle 13. I set the box down quietly and moved toward it. The closer I got, the clearer it became. Two voices, overlapping, not arguing, not emotional, just looping, conversational. The cadence of dialogue, but with no meaning. I couldn't pick out the words, only the rhythm. Then, footsteps, fast, light, like bare feet on tile. I turned the corner. The aisle was empty, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, shelves neat, product untouched, but I could still hear it, like it was behind the shelves themselves. I stepped forward. The left side was Halloween clearance, fake cobwebs, rubber masks, half-priced candy bags. The right side was pet supplies, leashes, cat litter, plush toys. Then I noticed something. The plush toys were all facing the same direction, not toward the aisle, toward the wall. Every single one. Dogs, cats, even the raccoon with the squeaker belly. Turned inward. That's not how we stock them. We always face product outward, standard practice. I reached for one and turned it around. A small tag was stapled to its collar. Not factory standard. A white paper tag with smudged ink. He remembers. Just that. I turned another plush. Another tag. Do you? I stepped back. Every toy I flipped had one. All different. You stood in his spot. He saw you. Your aisle is his now. My skin went cold. I backed out of the aisle, turned the corner, and ran into Heather. She nearly dropped her clipboard. Jesus, Ethan, she muttered. What the hell? I caught my breath. Did you hear that? She stared at me. Hear what? I pointed back toward the aisle. Voices, just now, 2 of them. Her face changed. She didn't ask me to explain. She didn't laugh. She just said, "Again?" I blinked. "You've heard it too." She nodded slowly. "Last week. Twice." I thought I was imagining it. I waited. She looked around, then leaned closer. "It always comes from 13. Always at the same time. I thought it was the speakers. Maybe the intercom shorting, but the voices don't sound recorded." "They're not," I said. She didn't question that, just nodded, then said something else. "I found something in the pharmacy fridge." I looked at her. She hesitated. "A note," she said, "taped behind the allergy meds." I waited. It said, "He's beneath us now." I didn't know how to respond. We stood there for a long moment, just listening. No more voices. Then Caleb walked by with a pallet jack, earbuds in, oblivious. Heather stepped back, cleared her throat, and walked off without another word. I stood there staring at aisle 13. Then I walked in again. This time I made it to the end, where the aisle meets the loading bay wall. A dead end with a single emergency door and a blinking exit sign overhead. There's a small security mirror mounted in the corner, convex fisheye view of the aisle. I glanced up. In the reflection, I wasn't alone. There was someone standing behind me. No movement, just a figure, medium height, shoulders slumped forward, head slightly tilted. I turned fast. No one there. I looked back at the mirror, now empty, but one of the plush toys had fallen off the shelf. I picked it up. No tag this time, just a puncture wound, right through the fabric neck, like someone had driven a pen straight into it. I held it for a moment, then dropped it, walked out of aisle 13 and didn't look back. That night I clocked out early, told Diego I felt sick. He didn't ask questions, didn't even look at me, just muttered, "All right," and kept staring at his monitor. As I left through the vestibule, I glanced back once. The screen on the front terminal lit up, no one near it. Then the beep, soft, crisp, familiar. I didn't stop. I walked through the doors and into the dark, but the sound followed me, echoing inside my chest. Not just the beep, the voices too. Repeating something I still couldn't translate, but I knew the shape of it. It was my name. The next night, someone asked for Marcus. It was 1:48 a.m. I remember the time exactly because I had just finished breaking down a pallet of dog food and was heading toward the back room to grab more zip ties. The store was quiet, not silent, just Walmart quiet. Music playing faintly through the overheads, probably something recycled from a 2008 playlist. He came in through the front doors like any other late-night customer. Middle-aged, thin frame, faded jeans, gray jacket that hung too loose at the sleeves. Something off about the way he walked. Slow, deliberate, but not tired. More like cautious. I noticed him because he moved with purpose, like he already knew where he wanted to go. But instead of heading to any aisle, he came straight toward me. No hesitation. "Excuse me," he said. His voice was soft, too soft for the size of the store. I turned. He smiled. Not in a friendly way, just an automatic lifting of the lips. "Is Marcus working tonight?" he asked. I didn't respond right away. His voice was too smooth, like someone who rehearses conversations before having them. The kind of person who talks with words that don't belong to them. "I'm sorry," I said finally. "Marcus Granger," he repeated. "He's usually on nights, stocking seasonal." I stared at him. He was looking directly at me, but not into me, like someone who doesn't need your answer. They just want to hear you say it. He doesn't work here anymore, I said. The man blinked once, slowly. Then, I saw him last night. I felt something shift in my stomach. He didn't blink again. Are you sure you're not mistaken? I asked. His head tilted, just slightly. No, it was him. He helped me find sidewalk salt. We don't stock that until December. I opened my mouth to say something else, but the man turned, walked toward aisle 13. I followed. I didn't mean to. It just happened. His steps were too slow for how sure he seemed. By the time I reached the mouth of the aisle, he was gone. I looked both ways. No sign of him. I walked the full length. Nothing. I even checked the back emergency door. Still locked. No alarm. I radioed Diego. Got a customer I can't locate. Middle-aged, gray jacket. Asked for Marcus. Disappeared near 13. Silence. Then, what? I repeated myself. He said, no one came in, Ethan. I walked back to the front. Checked the security footage with Diego. There was no entry at 1:48 a.m., no record, no camera trigger, nothing. But I saw him. I spoke to him. We both did. And I know what I felt when he said Marcus's name, like someone had just pulled a thread loose in the back of my mind. That night I didn't go back to my aisles. I wandered, back and forth, looping the outer perimeter of the store like I was waiting for something to return. I ended up in the break room again. Microwave off, coffee pot empty, vending machine humming. I sat at the far table and pulled out Marcus's notebook. Page after page, names, times, scribbled thoughts that made less sense the longer I stared at them. One entry caught my eye. It was dated. Most weren't. Jan 14. Saw him again, in the mirror this time. He doesn't blink. Same clothes, same shoes, but something in the eyes is wrong. There was a drawing under it, crude, just a stick figure outline, but the eyes were scribbled out. Violently. I closed the notebook. That's when I heard it again. The beep, coming from the front terminal. Even from here I could hear it. The same digital chirp I'd grown to dread. I stood up, walked to the door of the break room and looked down the hallway. Nothing. But I felt the cold again. This time it wasn't just a temperature dip. It was a pull. Like the hallway was longer than before. Like the tiles were stretched, each step taking me further into something I couldn't measure. I forced myself forward, made it to the vestibule. The front terminal was lit. The screen didn't say, welcome. It said, clocked in, 2:07 a.m. But it was only 2:01. That had never happened before. It was early, like something had moved ahead of schedule. I stepped closer. The doors slid open behind me. No wind, no motion trigger, just an empty parking lot beyond. And for a moment, I thought I saw him. A figure standing at the far end of the lot, not moving, not lit, just shape, then gone, like it had been waiting for the doors to open, but not to come in, to see, to check. I turned back to the screen. The name had changed. Marcus Granger. Then, a flicker. Ethan Lewis. Then both names, alternating rapidly. The screen buzzed, faint but distinct, like static through metal. Then everything shut off. Pitch black, no glow, no hum, just me, the terminal, and the open doors. I walked back inside, and as I did, I caught my reflection in the security mirror. But the man looking back at me wasn't standing the way I was. He was tilted, slightly, just like the man in the gray jacket, just like Marcus, the last week before he died. There's a corridor behind the freezer aisle that most people don't know about. It's not on the official floor plan, at least not the one taped to the fire escape wall. It's part of the old design, leftover from when the store used to have two separate freezer units before they were remodeled into a single walk-in space. Now, it's just a narrow passage used by maintenance and vendors when they need to reach the back panels or service the compressors. It's dark, bare concrete floor, metal piping running along the ceiling like exposed veins. You can hear the freezers humming on the other side. A low pulsing sound that never fully stops. I never liked being back there. It's the kind of place that makes you feel like you shouldn't be there, even if you're allowed to be. The kind of place that listens. After what happened with the terminal, after seeing my own name flicker next to Marcus's, I didn't sleep. I didn't leave town. I didn't even go home for a while. I just sat in my car, staring at the sliding glass doors from across the lot, waiting for the sky to lighten. The next night, I clocked in like normal. No one said anything. No one asked how I was. It was like I hadn't left. At 2:06 a.m., I found myself near the freezer aisle. The pallets were already broken down. Frank had left early. Some family emergency. Diego barely looked up from his desk when I told him I'd finished the cold storage. I didn't touch the milk. I didn't restock the eggs. I walked to the back panel. The door to the maintenance corridor was unlocked. I pulled it open slowly. The air hit me first. It wasn't cold like the freezers. It was damp. Still air. Stale, almost metallic. The kind of scent you get in basements that haven't been touched in years. I stepped in and pulled the door shut behind me. No lights. Just the glow from a dying bulb deeper in the hallway, pulsing every few seconds like a heartbeat. I walked slowly. The sound of my own footsteps on concrete echoed too sharply, like the walls were too close together. About halfway in, I stopped, because I smelled something else. Not the metal, not the mildew. Sweat, old sweat, sharp, sour, and something underneath it, lemon cleaner, the industrial kind we use for floors. The combination made my stomach turn. I reached the end of the corridor. There was a service panel mounted to the wall, locked. Beside it, a small alcove, just a few feet of dead space where old cables hung from rusted hooks. That's where I saw it. A chair, just a plastic break room chair. Beige, cracked in the middle, out of place. Facing the wall, on the seat, a folded Walmart vest. Someone had written a name on the back with black marker. M. Granger, not stitched, not printed, just handwritten, fresh, no dust, like it had been placed there recently. I stepped closer, and then I heard it. Not footsteps, not breathing. A voice, from behind the wall, muffled, repeating. Just one word, again, over and over, like a loop. Like someone pressing a button. Again, again, again. I stepped back, turned toward the corridor, and froze. There was someone at the end, just beyond the glow of the pulsing bulb. Not moving, not speaking, standing, watching. I couldn't see their face, but they were wearing the red Cardinals hat. Marcus's hat. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The light flickered once, off, then on again. And the figure was gone. I didn't run. I couldn't. I just walked, calmly, slowly, all the way back down the corridor. Opened the freezer door. Let the sound of humming compressors flood over me like static. Back on the main floor, everything looked normal. People stalking. Boxes open. Plastic wraps scattered like snakeskin. I went to the back office. Diego wasn't there. Just the monitors. All feeds active. I scanned the cameras. Aisle 13, empty. Break room, empty. Freezer aisle, clear. But one feed was different. It had no label, just a blank gray box with a timestamp. It showed the corridor I had just left, behind the freezers. And sitting in the chair was someone wearing a vest, not moving, not breathing, just facing the wall. I looked closer and saw something I shouldn't have seen, because taped to the wall, right at eye level in the camera feed, was a photo. Grainy, black and white. A printed still frame from an old security cam, and in that photo was me, standing in aisle 13, looking at something just out of frame, eyes wide, mouth open, like I had seen something I couldn't unsee. The locker was open when I got back. Number 32. I hadn't told anyone I found the badge. No one knew I had taken the notebook. No one should have been near that locker. But when I returned from the freezer corridor, heart still pounding, mind still trying to process the camera feed, I found the door slightly ajar. It was 3:12 a.m. The hallway was empty. I stood there for a full minute, staring at it. The lock, the old combination dial, hung loosely from the latch, unspun. Still in place, but not clicked closed. I reached out and opened the door the rest of the way. There was something inside. Not much. Just a small cardboard box. Shoebox sized. Plain. No branding. I pulled it out slowly, half expecting it to be empty. It wasn't. Inside, a handful of objects. All familiar. All wrong. First, a time card. Not digital. Physical. Punched with a real stamp. Name, Marcus Granger. Date, March 19th. But Marcus died in February. Second, a disposable coffee cup, same kind we use in the break room, lid stained. Inside, the remnants of dried black coffee. The side of the cup had writing, black Sharpie, just a number, 2113. That's not a room, not an aisle. It didn't match anything. Third, a folded receipt, crinkled and yellowed. Item, 1 candy doll. Debit, seasonal price, 0.0. Cashier, unknown. I turned it over, nothing on the back, no date, no transaction number, just a blank return code field with a single slash through it. I placed the receipt down and reached for the last object. A key, small, brass, heavy, no tag, no number. I held it for a long time. Then I heard it, from inside the locker. A sound, not metal, faint, not shifting, like someone drawing air through their teeth. I dropped the key. It clattered inside the box. I stepped back. The sound stopped. Just like that. I looked around. Still alone. The hall buzzed faintly under the weak overhead light. The kind of buzz you only notice when your brain is trying not to panic. I leaned in again, careful. This time, I pulled the box completely out and checked the locker walls. Nothing. But the sound had been real. It had come from in there. From that exact space. Like the metal itself had lungs. I closed the door slowly and spun the lock. Not because I thought it would help, but because I needed something to feel final. Back in the break room, I placed the key and receipt on the table and just stared at them. Heather walked in a few minutes later. She didn't speak at first, just poured a cup of coffee and sat across from me. She looked at the items, said nothing. Then she reached into her pocket, pulled something out, a crumpled post-it, same handwriting as the others. She slid it across the table to me. It read, "Don't put it back." I looked at her. She didn't blink. "They found it once already," she said. "That's why he stayed." I swallowed hard. "What is it?" Heather just shook her head. "Something that shouldn't have made it through inventory." I picked up the key. It felt heavier now, like it knew I was touching it. "Have you ever used it?" I asked. She nodded once. Then her eyes went distant. "I found a drawer in the office once, one we never open. This key fits, but there's nothing inside." I waited. She added, "The second time I checked, the drawer was locked from the inside." Neither of us spoke for a while after that. The vending machine clicked on by itself. A faint hum, followed by a short mechanical cough, like it was choking on nothing. I stood up, took the key, took the box, went back to the locker, and placed everything inside again, because I couldn't carry it anymore. Not yet, but before I closed the door, I hesitated. The inside wall of the locker, the back panel, had a scratch on it, a long, thin line, not random. I leaned in, squinting under the low light. There were more, dozens of them, carved into the metal, letters, numbers, symbols I didn't recognize, and one word, larger than the others, under. That was it, just that. I shut the locker slowly and walked away. And for the rest of the shift, every time I passed that hallway, I felt like something behind the metal was pressing forward, waiting to see if I would return the key, waiting to see what I would do next. It happened at 2:07 a.m. again. But this time, there were two beeps, not back-to-back, simultaneous, like two terminals registering input at the exact same millisecond. I was in the electronics aisle, checking for inventory discrepancies. The system had flagged a Bluetooth speaker as phantom stocked, meaning it showed in the database but wasn't physically present. It's the kind of glitch we're used to, usually a scanning error, nothing supernatural. At least, that's what I told myself. Then the first beep echoed from the front vestibule. A split second later, before the sound had even fully faded, the second beep came from the break room. They weren't echoes. They weren't delayed. They were identical. And they happened at the same time. I froze. My body knew what it meant before my mind did. I walked fast, not running, not panicked, but fast, through the inner ring of the store, past household, past cleaning, until I reached the break room. The terminal screen was active. Clock in. Marcus Granger, 2:07 a.m. I turned and walked straight to the vestibule. The front screen was still fading back to idle, but I saw it. The last name. Clock in. Ethan Lewis. 2:07 a.m. My name. At the same time, I stood there, heart slamming in my chest. The system had registered both of us clocking in simultaneously. That wasn't possible. Only one badge scan per moment. That's how it works. There's a queuing buffer, milliseconds. But even if someone tried to fake it, the system would stagger the reads. I checked my badge, still clipped to my vest, untouched. I hadn't clocked in again, not since 10:02 p.m. I walked to the office. Diego wasn't there. The door was unlocked, screens active. I pulled up the log, same result. 2:07 a.m. Marcus Granger, break room terminal. 2:07 a.m. Ethan Lewis, front vestibule terminal. 2 inputs, no error code, no overlap warning, just clean entries. The system had accepted both as real. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling something icy start to spread in my chest. Not fear exactly, recognition, like I had been moving toward this moment for weeks, like something had been nudging me into place. Then I noticed a third entry, same time. 2:07 a.m. Terminal, undefined location. User, unlisted status, active. There was no name, no ID, just that single word in all caps. Active. I clicked it, nothing opened, no drop-down, no file, just the line flashing faintly. Then, the screen blinked. For a split second, the monitor showed something else. Not a log, a face, mine. Staring back at me, but wrong. The eyes were blacked out, scribbled like graphite, the same way Marcus had drawn them in the notebook. Then it was gone. Back to the admin screen, no sign of the image. I stood up slowly and left the office. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even take a screenshot, because part of me already knew it was useless. At 3:15 a.m. I was walking through the garden section, mostly empty now, just off-season clearance bins, when the lights dimmed. Not a full blackout, just a pulse. A silent stutter of fluorescence, like the entire grid blinked. Then the intercom crackled. Not static, not words, just a low sound. A breath, drawn in, held, released, then silence. No one was near the manager's desk. I checked. No one had pressed the mic button, but something had used the intercom. I walked to the end of the garden section. There, near the emergency exit, was a folded piece of paper taped to the floor. The tape was fresh, too clean, as if someone had just pressed it down. I peeled it off and unfolded it. 4 words. You clocked in twice. That was all. No signature, just those words. I looked up. The emergency exit light flickered once. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Fast, too fast. I turned, no one there. But the wind in the aisle had changed direction. It was pulling inward now, as if something at the center of the store had started drawing everything toward it. I returned to the break room, sat down, looked at my hands. They were shaking. Heather came in a few minutes later, eyes red, holding a soda can like it was an anchor. She sat down across from me and didn't speak. Then, slowly, she reached into her pocket, pulled out a scrap of receipt paper. She slid it toward me. Someone had written on the back, "You're not the only Ethan." I stared at the words, then at her. Her face said everything. She had seen him too. There's a term we use around here, half joking, half not. Graveyard shift. It's what everyone calls the overnight crew. Stockers, cleaners, managers who draw the short straw. We laugh about it, wear it like a badge, as if we're proud to be the ones keeping the store breathing while the rest of the world sleeps. But I don't think it started as a joke, and I don't think it was meant to be funny. Not after what Heather told me. It was after another long silence in the break room. The air had gone still again. The soda in her can had stopped fizzing. The hum from the vending machine cut out mid-cycle. Heather sat perfectly still, her eyes glassy. Then she said, "Marcus wasn't the first." I didn't answer. I just listened. He wasn't even the second. I leaned forward. "There was a guy named Riley," she continued. "Not the manager. This was before her time. He was a janitor, worked overnight, died on shift." I swallowed hard. "How?" "No one knows. They found him in the back hallway near Seasonal. Door was locked from the inside. He was sitting upright, like he just stopped. When was this? 5 years ago. I felt something tighten in my chest. She kept going. Before that, same story. Different guy. Cart pusher. Went missing halfway through his shift. His vest was found by the propane cage, still zipped up. They thought he walked off the job, but his car was still in the lot. Wallet in the trunk. Clock never punched out. I stared at her. And no one reported this? She gave a bitter laugh. Corporate swept it, said it was unrelated, isolated events. Safety measures were added, cameras, policies, but they never closed the store. I sat back in my chair. It made sense now. The empty HR reports, the incomplete termination file for Marcus, the vague cause of death. Walmart didn't bury the evidence, they just let it sink. Heather pulled something from her vest pocket, a small plastic tag, one of the old badge clips. She slid it across the table. The name was faded, barely legible. E. Lewis. My breath caught. It wasn't mine. Different font, older laminate, corners yellowed, but it was my name. I looked at her. She didn't flinch. This isn't new, she said. What's happening here? It started before any of us got hired. I stared at the tag, tried to trace the edges with my finger, but it felt wrong. Too smooth, too rounded, like it had been handled too often. I slid it back toward her. Where did you find this? Locker 14. That wasn't my locker. It used to belong to someone named Evan. Evan Lewis. No relation to me. At least, not one I'd ever heard. But the coincidence was too precise. Same first initial, same last name, same shift. Heather stood and left without another word. I stayed behind. Let the silence deepen. Let the realization settle. This store doesn't just take people. It remembers them, twists their names into the walls, echoes their voices down the wrong aisles, replays their movements at 2:07 a.m. like a loop it can't stop watching. Later that shift, I walked the perimeter again, tried to avoid aisle 13. Didn't succeed. As I passed the far end, near the pet supplies section, I saw something. A uniform. Folded. Placed carefully on the floor. Blue Walmart vest, black slacks, work-issued shoes tucked under. A note pinned to the collar. One size fits all. No handwriting. Just typed letters. I stepped closer. The vest had a name tag clipped to it. Ethan L. No last name, no ID number. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to, because I knew what would happen if I did. The store was offering something, and I was starting to understand the rules. It doesn't chase you. It waits. It nudges. It places items where you'll find them, and if you respond, even once, it begins to fold you in. At 3:45 a.m., the intercom clicked on again. This time, no static. Just a voice, calm, flat. Inventory assistance needed. Aisle 13. Ethan, please respond. The store was empty. Only 4 of us on shift. No one should have paged me, and none of them would have used my name. I walked to the service desk, checked the mic panel. The broadcast log showed nothing. No transmission at 3:45 a.m. I went to the break room, checked the terminal. It was off. Then I saw it. Taped to the back of the vending machine. A map, drawn in pen. Crude, but unmistakable. The floor plan of the store. Aisle 13 marked in red. And next to it, in tiny block letters, graveyard isn't just a shift, it's a direction. Inventory was scheduled for 4 a.m. It wasn't on the official board. No manager brief, no vendor call-in. Just a handwritten note slipped under the break room door. Final inventory. Begin at aisle 13. Do not skip. There was no signature. Just a timestamp. 3:33 a.m. I found it while pouring stale coffee into a cracked mug. The kind we never wash, just rinse and reuse. The paper was thin, warmer than it should have been, like someone had just touched it. I took it as a dare, or an invitation. I walked the long way to aisle 13, avoided crossing the center of the store, avoided eye contact with Caleb, who sat slouched behind the photo counter like he'd given up pretending this place made sense. Aisle 13 was dark when I arrived. All the overhead lights were on, except here. The fluorescence above buzzed, but cast no light, like something was swallowing it. I stepped in. The floor was cleaner than usual. The shelves, perfect. Too perfect. All items fronted. labels aligned, pricing tags without tears or residue. Even the seasonal leftovers were stacked like they'd never been touched. But none of it matched our system. I checked the inventory list on my handheld. It showed the aisle as empty. No SKUs, no shelf IDs, no product data. Aisle 13 had been cleared from the database. I tried scanning a box. The screen froze, then blinked. Unrecognized item, please remove. I scanned again, same result. I scanned another item, and another, each one rejected. Then a new message flashed. Do not inventory the dead. My hands went cold. I backed out of the aisle, but something stopped me. A sound, plastic tearing, from deeper in. I stepped forward, past paper towels, past the cat food end cap. Then I saw it. A box, open, half crushed, shipping label partially torn off. Inside, black Walmart vests, all tagged, all identical. Each one folded with surgical precision, each one labeled M. Grange, 24 vests, all with his name, all brand new. I turned one over. The inside collar had a stitched code, 213MG, the same number from the coffee cup. I dropped the vest, stumbled back, and saw that someone had written on the inside of the box, under the flaps. Big black letters, curved by hand. Count them twice. I didn't. I left the box, walked out of the aisle, and nearly collided with Heather. She was pale, hands shaking. They changed the sheets, she whispered. What? The inventory sheets. Look. She handed me a clipboard. The paper was the standard form, UPCs, SKUs, slot numbers, but the entries weren't ours. Item 1, hollow figure, red cap. Item 2, mirror echo, night shift. Item 3, repetition, physical, clocks. And near the bottom, item 24, replacement, Ethan Lewis, status, processing. I stared at it. The ink was fresh, not printed, handwritten, the same handwriting as the post-its. Heather's voice dropped lower. I think it's already started. I looked at her. She was crying, but silently, like someone who had accepted the answer long before asking the question. I reached into my vest pocket and pulled out the key from Marcus's box. The brass one. The one Heather said opened nothing. I handed it to her. She stared at it, then said, "You're not the first person to hold this." I nodded. "Have you ever seen someone finish inventory?" I asked. She shook her head. "No one does. Not fully." Then she whispered something I barely heard. "They just get counted." I looked at the clipboard again. The last line on the form had no item, just a code. A13.207, retained. I tore the page out, folded it, kept it. That shift ended without another word. No alarms, no announcements. Just us, moving through the aisles, pretending we were still part of the process. At 6:14 a.m. I clocked out manually. Didn't scan my badge, didn't use the terminal. I wrote it on paper and slid it under Diego's door. As I left through the front vestibule, I saw something on the floor near the doors. Another vest. Folded, black. Different name tag, Ethan L. Same as before, but this time it was wet. The tag smeared, and written in marker across the back, in uneven block letters, already counted. Something's wrong with the clocks, not just the ones on the wall, all of them. The digital timestamp on the break room terminal, the wristwatch I've worn for 3 years without fail, the clock-in system, the security feeds, even the radio time checks piped through the store intercom every hour. They don't match anymore. I noticed it when I walked into the office at the start of my shift. The monitor said 10:04 p.m., but my watch said 10:01. That's normal, right? A few minutes off. Then I checked the wall clock by the entrance, 10:09 p.m. Terminal in the break room, 9:58 p.m. 4 devices, 4 different times. I reset mine. Didn't matter. 15 minutes later, it was out of sync again. Not slower. Not faster, just wrong, like it was following something else. By 1:43 a.m., I'd given up trying to align them. Instead, I started watching for the moment they should have matched, but didn't. And that's when I noticed something else. The security camera feed. It was playing the same segment, on loop, roughly 12 seconds, showing the aisle near seasonal, empty, then a blur of movement in the corner, then empty again. over and over. I checked the timestamp. 2:07 a.m. Every loop ended with the same flicker, a glitch in the lower frame, like the image was being folded in on itself. I paused the feed, zoomed in on the blur. It wasn't motion, it was someone, standing still. Blurry not from speed but distortion, like the image didn't want to fully form. I saved the segment, or tried to. The file disappeared before it finished exporting. I played it again. This time the footage was different. Same aisle, same angle. But now, I was in it, standing at the end, facing the camera, holding a clipboard, just staring. I don't remember being there. I didn't have a clipboard. And then, the image of me looked up, right at the lens, right at me. Then the feed cut to black. I sat there, frozen, not sure how long. The next thing I remember is the hallway light flickering. Once, then again, then all of them stuttered, a wave of pulses that rippled across the ceiling like a warning. I went back to the break room. Heather was already there. She didn't look up, just pushed a folded piece of paper across the table. I opened it, a printout, from the terminal log. 2 users clocked in at 2:07 a.m. Again, same names as before, Ethan Lewis, Marcus Granger. But this time, the locations were different. Ethan, undefined terminal Marcus. Employee storage. What's employee storage? I asked. Heather didn't speak. She just pointed to the back of the note. I turned it over. Someone had written, "Storage isn't a place. It's what happens when you're no longer on the floor." She slid another paper forward. A receipt. Same type as before, except the purchase wasn't a product. It was a name. Item, Ethan Lewis. Total, 0.00 change, retained. I stared at the line. Change, retained. Not returned, not due. Retained. Like something had kept part of me. I looked at Heather again. She was staring past me, toward the hallway. Her lips moved, but not to me, like she was mouthing something only she could hear. I stood up, walked toward the vestibule. The front terminal was dark, no glow, no sound, but the door was slightly open, even though it shouldn't be. A draft rolled through, and with it, a whisper, not words, a rhythm. 3 soft knocks, against nothing. Then, silence. I turned back toward the store. Every overhead light turned on at once, too bright, too fast, blinding. Then back to normal. And in that flash, for just a split second, I saw them. Dozens of people standing in the aisles, all wearing the same vest, all facing away from me, all frozen, like mannequins dressed in familiarity. When the lights settled, they were gone. But one of them had left something, a clipboard, sitting on a display end cap. I picked it up. It wasn't blank. It was a form, titled, Employee Transition, Final Phase. My name was already filled in, Ethan Lewis. Clearance level, reassigned. Under comments, sync instability. Subject exhibits duplication response. I dropped it, walked fast to the back office, tried to log into the system. Access denied. Tried my manager code, the one Diego gave me in case of emergencies. Code reclaimed. This credential now belongs to another. I pulled out my own badge, scanned it at the override terminal. It beeped, then displayed a new name. Ethan Lewis. 2. I stared. Not a clone, not a copy. Just a second. Somewhere in this store, there was another version of me, and the system had already accepted him. I backed away from the desk. The screen blinked again. A message appeared. You're late. Inventory completed at 2:07 a.m. Underneath, a timestamp. Next scan scheduled, 2:07 a.m. Again. It happened again. Not just the beeps, not just the name on the screen. The entire night. Repeated. I didn't notice at first. It began subtly. A conversation I'd already heard. A product I knew I'd already stocked showing up sealed again. Heather offering me the same note she'd handed over yesterday. Aisle 13 cleared, then full again. The same shadows. The same pattern of blinking lights near the garden center. It was like walking through a movie I'd already watched, frame by frame. Only this time I could feel it. A pressure building in my skull, like my thoughts were being squeezed into alignment. By 2:04 a.m., I was already in the break room. coffee half full, clipboard untouched. Heather walked in. Same pace, same sigh, same look. She didn't speak. I mouthed her first words before she said them. "I think it's already started." She froze, looked at me differently. "You're not synced," she said quietly. That word again. "Synced with what?" I asked. She didn't answer. The terminal behind us beeped. 2:07 a.m. I turned. The screen lit up, but didn't show Marcus's name. Not this time. It showed mine. Ethan Lewis, clocked in, 2:07 a.m. Then, again, the same beep. From the front vestibule. We both stood, walked silently through the corridor, turned the corner. Same screen, same name. Ethan Lewis, clocked in, 2:07 a.m. 2 entries. Again. I pulled out my badge and scanned it at the break room terminal, just to disrupt the loop. But the system didn't react. Instead, the screen displayed something new. "You are already here." A moment later, the lights dimmed. Only aisle 13 remained lit. A spotlight effect, unnatural. Like the building wanted me to notice. I walked toward it. Heather didn't follow. The floor tiles under my feet felt softer, not like carpet, more like something beneath the linoleum had loosened, detached. I reached the aisle. The shelves were empty. Every single product, gone. But the air was thick with scent. Vanilla, cardboard, melted plastic, and something older, rust maybe. There were no sounds, no music, no buzz from the vents. Just that light, steady, unmoving, and the silence pressing in on all sides. In the middle of the aisle stood a figure, back turned, motionless, wearing my vest, my name tag, same haircut, same shoes. I didn't move, didn't breathe. He didn't either. Then, slowly, he raised his right arm and pointed, not at me, at the clock above the fire exit. It read, 2:07 a.m. frozen. No ticking, just that time. Like the store itself had reset to that moment and refused to leave. Then, the figure turned, and I saw my own face. But wrong, paler, eyes darker, no recognition, no emotion. He stepped forward. I did too. Mirroring. 1 step. 2. Then, he spoke. Just 1 sentence. "One of us has to stay." And I understood. The store doesn't let everyone clock out. It counts, it copies, it retains. Each 2:07 a.m. is a fork, a choice masked as routine. The system doesn't reject anomalies. It absorbs them, makes room for new roles, rewrites the logs, deletes the original. I looked down. My badge was gone. Not dropped, not stolen, just gone. The copy stopped moving, waited, and I realized he wasn't there to threaten me. He was waiting for permission, for me to take his place, or to give him mine. I reached into my back pocket, found the receipt Heather had given me the night before. Still warm. It had changed. Now it read, "Your shift ends when his begins." I looked up, and he was gone, but the name tag was on the floor, face down. I picked it up. Ethan Lewis. But the barcode was scratched out, and written by hand beneath it, in red ink, was the word, "Retained." I tried to leave, not clock out, leave. Physically, out the back, through the emergency exit near the seasonal stockroom. It was instinct, not strategy. After seeing the copy, after holding the altered name tag in my hand, I couldn't stay inside that aisle another second. Every aisle began to look the same. Every shadow stretched longer than it should have. Even the doors, the solid kind you trust, started to feel thin, artificial, like set pieces. I grabbed my hoodie, left the vest behind, didn't say a word to Heather. She was still seated in the break room, unmoving, eyes closed, as if bracing for a pressure wave no one else could hear. The path to the emergency exit was empty. Every step echoed harder than it should have, like the tiles were hollow underneath. I passed the dog food aisle, turned the corner near janitorial, and pushed through the double doors into the utility hall. That's when I noticed the smell again. Lemon cleaner, mixed with something metallic, not fresh, not overpowering, just present, persistent, the kind of smell that doesn't arrive, it stays. I reached the red exit door, pressed the bar, it clicked, no alarm, no buzz, But the door didn't open. It didn't budge. I pressed harder, leaned into it. Nothing. I stepped back, looked up at the lighted sign above. Emergency exit. Do not block. The light was on, but flickering, just enough to betray the illusion. The door looked real. It felt real, but it didn't open. Not to me. I checked the handle. No lock, no latch. Just the panic bar. I knocked. The sound didn't echo properly. It was dull, muted, like knocking on drywall instead of steel. I stepped back again. Then I saw it, on the floor, half tucked under the mop sink nearby. A badge, face down. I crouched and flipped it. It wasn't Marcus's. It was mine. Same photo, same name. But the barcode was gone, scraped clean. Someone had used a key or coin to destroy it. And behind the badge, written directly on the floor in black marker, was a sentence. Emergency exits are not for employees. I stood slowly, backed away. The hall light flickered again. Then, all at once, everything went dark. Total blackout. Only the exit sign remained lit. Red glow humming like a heartbeat. Then I heard it. A sound I'd only heard once before. The microwave. Beeping. 3 times. From the break room, far behind me. Then the soft sound of a chair scraping tile. Not near me. Ahead. On the other side of the exit door. As if someone was already outside. Waiting. I turned. Started walking back the way I came. Faster this time. When I reached the main floor again, all the lights were back. As if nothing had changed. But I noticed something on the customer service counter. A clipboard. Not ours. On it, a single sheet of paper. Titled, Unresolved Transitions, Pending Review. Only one name was listed. Lewis, Ethan. Status, circulating underneath. A time. Next checkpoint, 2:07 a.m. Same as always. Except now, another line had been added. Exit status. Failed. I turned the page over. On the back, someone had written, "This store does not authorize external departures for retained staff." My stomach dropped. I knew what it meant. There's no outside for me anymore. The door was a gesture, a symbol, not an escape. The store had already decided. At 4:11 a.m., I returned to the break room. Heather was gone. In her place was a folded vest, laid flat across the table. Same as before. Tag already filled out. Ethan Lewis. No barcode. No employee number. Just a red sticker across the chest. Staying. I showed up for work at 9:57 p.m. I don't remember driving there. I don't remember waking up. I just remember standing in the parking lot, keys in hand, staring at the sliding glass doors as they parted without motion. Inside, everything looked normal, as it always does. The lights buzzed in rhythmic harmony. Floor wax still drying under the entrance lights. One cart left adrift near the pharmacy aisle. I walked in, clocked in. The screen didn't blink, didn't hesitate. Ethan Lewis, 2:07 a.m. Already registered. I stood there, my fingers still on the scanner, trying to remember if I had already done this. Had I walked in earlier? Was this the second time? Or the third? The break room was empty. Heather's locker, open. Her vest, gone. No trace of her presence remained. Just a sticky note taped inside the door. You saw it too late. There were no other employees on shift. At least none that responded to the radio. I tried Channel 3. Inventory, nothing. Channel 6, floor leads, nothing. The store was silent, but not empty. I could feel it, that slow pull beneath the floor, like something beneath the tile was breathing. It wasn't panic, not anymore, just inevitability. I walked the aisles slowly, each one darker than the last. The products all facing the wrong way. Barcodes inverted, pricing tags blank. By the time I reached aisle 13, the lights were already off. I stepped inside. The shelves were stripped. The walls were darker than they should have been, not painted, just dull, like something had drained the color out of the paint. Halfway through, I found another name tag. On the floor, face up. Ethan Lewis. But the photo wasn't mine. It was older. Same face, different eyes. I pocketed it, kept walking. At the far end of the aisle, near the corner where seasonal merges into forgotten storage, I heard a voice. Behind me, low, hoarse, familiar. Ethan. I turned slowly. Marcus stood in the center of the aisle, but not like I remembered him. No hat, no badge. His vest unzipped, mouth partially open, eyes blackened, not burned, not gouged, voided, like nothing behind them was left. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stood, waiting. I stepped toward him. 1 pace, 2, then stopped, because something else stepped out behind him. Another figure, same build, same stance, another Ethan, not a mirror image. Worse, like someone tried to draw me from memory, and forgot the shape of the smile. He held a clipboard, blank, no lines, no writing, just a space, enough space for one name. I stepped back, but I couldn't move fast enough. The lights overhead began to flicker in rapid succession. One by one, aisle by aisle, the store went dark, and I understood. This was the last shift, not because I was fired, not because I quit, but because the system had made its decision. 1 Ethan in, 1 Ethan out. And I wasn't the version that stayed. I walked toward the exit, vestless, badgeless, but not unseen. Every reflective surface, freezer doors, security domes, stainless trash bins, showed a different version of me. One weeping, one smiling, one completely still. They didn't follow me. They just watched, because I was no longer part of them. I passed the front terminal, still lit, still humming. But instead of displaying a name, it showed a countdown. 006, 005. I stood in front of it, watched the timer hit 0. The screen blinked, then displayed one line. Please proceed to final clock out. Underneath, a blinking cursor. No buttons, no scanner. Just the prompt, and the feeling that the store was holding its breath. The screen kept blinking. Please proceed to final clock out. I didn't move. I just stood there watching that line pulse softly against the blue background. The store had gone completely still. No hums, no vents, no playlists cycling through the same 8 songs. Even the clock above the exit had stopped ticking. 2:07 a.m. Of course, I reached out, not because I wanted to, but because there was nothing else left to do. My hand hovered over the screen. It didn't ask for a badge, didn't ask for confirmation, just proximity. And as I moved closer, the screen flickered. Not off, not broken, but uncertain, like even the system wasn't sure which version of me it had retained. Then it went black, just for a second, long enough for my reflection to appear in the glass. And behind me, another. Not Marcus, not a copy, just a presence. The shape of something that no longer needed a name. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the final name tag, the one I found in aisle 13. I placed it on the terminal ledge. Let the system decide. The screen lit back up. A line of text appeared. Clock out successful. Then it faded. The glass doors didn't open. There was no sound, no relief, only stillness. I looked around one last time. The shelves, the lights, the layout I once memorized like scripture, all of it blurred now, as if the structure of the building no longer needed to pretend it was a store. It had served its purpose. It had counted what it came to count. The break room light flickered on behind me, then off. The hallway ahead dimmed. My name no longer appeared on the schedule sheet taped to the office wall. Instead, one word, centered neatly across the roster, retained. The badge in my hand faded, literally. The photo blurred, the plastic softened, and then, as if dissolved by unseen heat, it simply came apart in my fingers. Gone. Like I had never been issued one. Like I had never been hired at all. I took one last walk. Down the center aisle, past the freezer units, past the self-checkout terminals that hadn't worked in weeks, toward the employee exit. Still locked, still blinking. But this time, no resistance. The bar clicked under my palm. The door opened, and I stepped into nothing. No alley, no parking lot, no morning sun on concrete, just static, not sound, not visual, a full body pressure, like being compressed into a smaller version of yourself. Then, breath, my own, sharp, shallow, inside another room, fluorescent, familiar, I was standing in front of a terminal. It blinked once, displayed a message. Clock in, Ethan Lewis, 2:07 a.m. Then the system paused. The screen split. 2 names. Ethan Lewis, 1. Ethan Lewis, 2. Only one remained highlighted. The other faded. And I understood. I was no longer working here. But I wasn't gone either. I was part of the system now. Part of the cycle. The next beep would come. Another badge would scan. And someone else, another version, would walk these aisles, wondering why the lights flickered, why aisle 13 felt colder, why the same time kept repeating. But they'd find out. Eventually. Because at Walmart, nobody really quits. Some of us just stop showing up, the version we were. And the store, it keeps counting.